Economics and politics are the foundation of human development.
While forming the world's earliest civilizations, Africans also laid the groundwork for the creation of economic systems.
By learning from our history, we gain the strength to empower the present and design the future. Presenting the premier forum for truth, culture, and change, HAPI Talks. Join us as we unlock the secrets to our success. Family, you guys don't understand how happy I am to finally get to show that opener. We've been using the other opener for years now. And that is the premiere of the brand new HAPI opener. It is, oh my God, it's fabulous. You're going to watch it a couple of times. We're going to actually talk about it more in the sort of the middle of our show, but it's, yeah. And it's so cool because the person who actually made it is here today. So we can pick his brain about it. But that is showing so many things. And if you look at it closely, you'll see a lot of people who we've actually had on HAPI Talks in there, but we have a new opener because it's symbolizing a new direction that HAPI is going. So that's why it's super exciting. So yes, family. Okay, so before we bring on our guest, first, this housekeeping stuff, regular things. Make sure you are liking, subscribing, and sharing this video, okay? Family, make sure that when you are looking at the video that you send it to at least 3 people. Jabari says send it to 3 people. I don't know why he said 3 and not 2, not 4. He said 3 people. So family, if you could send this video on, it helps the algorithm. And plus it's going to be really good information that everybody needs to know. And so, please like, comment, and share the video. Also, if you're not subscribed to our channel, please make sure you go to our YouTube page, HAPI Film, and subscribe. And when you hit the subscribe button, that's cool. We like that. But you will also hit the little bell. That's the notifications. So that as soon as we go live, you know that we're going live, and you can see us right then and there. And also we are on all major platforms. That's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We are actually on TikTok now, TikTok and X at HAPI Film. But it's also this most important though, to make sure you follow us on that YouTube page, because we're trying to get to 40K. We're so close. So family, we know y'all watching it. So just go ahead and just like, subscribe, and hit the notifications button right there. Also, family, we got a little clearance sale going on in the HAPI store. Get your HAPI gear. And when you're there, you can get a couple of things. You can definitely get a hoodie, t-shirt, a hat. And we also have all of our films on DVD. So the Tekken, Nubia, HAPI, you can get a DVD version if you want. Now, you can also, right now, HAPI is streaming live on Amazon and on Quayle TV and on Tubi. Okay, so that's another way to support the film. And trust me, right now, you guys may just be listening to this, but after you hear this conversation we're getting ready to have with the creators of HAPI, then you're going to be running to get your DVD copy and making sure that you're streaming it live on Amazon, Quayle TV, or Tubi. Also, family, it's time, we always, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in detail in terms of the support. So family, if anything, if you don't have anything to send us, via Super Chat or Cash App, you can always just make sure you're liking and subscribing to everything. And the most important thing is that you are subscribed to our newsletter. Okay, because the newsletter is how you get all the information. You get the early bird on everything. When we do trips to Africa, when we have conferences, all those things you get first. You get to hear it first from the HAPI newsletter. So it's super important that you do that. And also you can advertise in the newsletter as well, which is another way to get whatever you're selling, whatever event you have going on. It's a really good way because we have about almost 10,000 people like on this list. So that's super important. Make sure you are signed up to the newsletter and that you get everything. And also, we would love if you want to, you can definitely donate right there to show some happy love to the Cash App. It's $HAPI Film. So I think that is everything, family. So let me tell you, it's a very, it's going to be an interesting show, and we're going to learn a lot of things, but it's also a very inspiring show. Okay. And the first person we're going to have come on, he's going to talk to us a little bit about the memorial services that are planned for Baaba Heru next weekend. But he's also going to talk more in detail about this creation, him and Taaqiy, about the creation of HAPI, the movie. And that's going to be really, I can't wait, to hear what they have to say. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Robert Seed Gay. And he is, listen, I was talking to him on the phone, and when I first met him, I don't think he had an Emmy then. Now he has 3 Emmys. And so he's done a lot of things. And so I cannot wait to hear from him. But without further ado, Seed. Hey, Seed.
Good evening. What's going on? Peace.
That's it. I was just like, I was thinking about that the first time I met you. Yeah, like you had no Emmys. You have 3 Emmys. You know how much work you have to do to get 3 Emmys?
Man, we was sleeping on the floor. We was broke. We were doing all kinds of stuff to make HAPI. We was catching flights. Whatever we had to do.
Yes, I'm driving in the car. I'm like, get out. Okay, so we can swoop around because we can't just stop in the middle of the street to get shot. So yes, it's so nice to see you. And you have to make sure you tell your wife hi.
I will.
Yeah, and she's like your production person.
Well, I mean, she's my partner. We've pretty much done everything together. From HAPI Films to now where we are with Ibis, and I mean, it's just peanut butter and jelly. We're a trio with Eli and Zakai and Rakim, who are now older. But looking through all of those pictures and just doing a recap, I realized like how much a part of everything Zakai was at that time. Zakai was in Africa with us. Zakai was, camera B. He was everything. So shout out to Zakai. A lot has happened for sure. And to some degree, you were telling me about your sons, and they're in college. I mean, I remember y'all were talking about martial arts class or whatever. We had Master Abdul Musawer in your kitchen. So much has occurred. So much.
Yeah, all the kids have grown up in HAPI. Yeah, that's why this is why it's going to be such an inspiring show. So before we get there, I want you to talk to us a little bit about what's happening next weekend and just like your involvement.
Yeah, so the one thing the gift that we're given by the creator, by Netzer, is the gift of life and the package of returning, of transitioning, right? So our dear esteemed elder Senor Ankh Semaj Ptah has transitioned, and we met close to 23 years ago. I went through my initiation at Semaj Tawi, and that was called Divine Sacred King Man, the Asarian Resurrection. And Senor has transitioned, so I know it's a really big thing for the community. He never proclaimed to be the leader of anything. He was more so teaching us that you had to raise the Heru within you, right? To get your higher consciousness and to defeat your lower self, which would be Set, right? So we are planning an event. We have put together with the existing shrines and temples that are presently moving about, doing their thing, moving and shaking, inspiring the universe. And we've put together something called the Ptah Foundation, which is just a group of us, and it's in inception, kind of like a committee to host this event.
Oh, nice.
One which will take place December 6th at the Caribbean Cultural Arts Center in Harlem. And I just want to give the exact address to that. I have it here in my notes. That's 120 East 125th Street. And that'll be between 12 and 5 on Saturday, December 6th.
Okay, and family. Okay, sorry. And family, I put the link in the chat. So you can just click on there, because there's a the tickets are free, correct? The tickets are free.
Yes, everything's free. Days are free.
Okay. Yep. So the Eventbrite is in the link, so that you can just click it so they can know that you're coming, so they don't know, after, like 600 people come, like they may not be able to fit everybody. So family, make sure you hit the Eventbrite and reserve a ticket.
Beautiful. Yeah, capacity there is 150.
Okay.
Kaaba has come out to speak. He will be there to speak, and Professor Kaaba, who I'm sure you all know, and I also believe that Mfundishi will be there as well on Saturday. Who you all know. I know he's your teacher as well. He's been my teacher. So I think a lot of people are going to come out to support Baaba Heru, and to I know Jabari's in Harlem as well. If we don't see Jabari Saturday, we'll definitely see Jabari on Sunday from the Shrine of Ma'at. So it's one of those things where I just kind of want to just give a big shout out to everybody who's responsible in making this happen. Alayton, who's Baaba Heru's son, has been a primary contributor and leader in this process, along with Sinjeti and his wife Kaeka, and Nzinga and her husband Jeremy, and myself Seed and my wife Akmarit. Baba was very particular about making sure that in moving forward, that the energies that were associated with his legacy would be in Ma'at, that it would be balanced. So it just wouldn't be the masculine making decisions, but it would also have the balance of the feminine making decisions as well. So we're going to have the Shrine of Ptah there representing. We're going to have Raseki Temple. We're going to have the Temple of Anu. We're going to have the House of Aset. We're going to have representation of Nu Aset Temple and the Temple of Bes. And Dr. Love, I'm not exactly sure what his temple is, but they're in California, and the Asara Set Society as well will have representation. So these are, pretty much the Kemetic universe that we know as now, coming together to kind of show some love, show some myrrh, show some respect to Senor Ankh Semaj Sepatah. So, there's so many things that I could say about my teacher. It's the one thing that always sticks out to me is that I think very much like Taaqiy, we were in New York looking at and finding street knowledge, because that's all that was available. And there were a couple of there were Hebrew Israelites, it was Dr. York, there was things were scattered, and then it's not like now you could just punch in anything and get information. You had to go find the bookstores, and depending on how good that bookstore was, the next time you went there, it wasn't there anymore. Like the bookstore had moved. So it was one of those things where I had to go out and find that knowledge. And I think that the way that I found Smai Tawi, the Shrine of Ptah, was by going to New Eurekan Poets Cafe. And I went to an open mic, and I went to listen to an open mic, and there was a brother that came on the mic, and his name was Lou Quantum Leap. And he came on, and he was a regular there, and he was a regular in the circuit as far as spoken word which was a thing then in the 90s. And you know, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, you go to these different spots to just hang out and to just kind of have somebody bless you, you know, with the freestyle, with the flow, whatever, something that was written. And he just came on and he dropped it. And I was like, wow, you know, after, you know, we exchanged info, you know, what do you do? What do you learn? What is this stuff that you're talking about? And he shared it with me. And then, you know, that's where it led me to going to Brooklyn and finding, you know, at the time, Baaba Heru teaching and learning a little bit more about African initiation. I wanted to know, it wasn't just like this one thing, come by my book or whatever. He had a lot to say, and he was communicating, he was teaching, he had a curriculum. He had a curriculum for Comedics 101, which was to kind of give you an idea of your African worldview. And then he had initiation, which was called Divine Sacred Kingman, which was 13 to 14 weeks. And he would take brothers through African rites of passage. So you would learn the African rites of passage through the Neteru, which are, you know, you have in Ifa, you have Orishas and so forth and so on. And in the Kemetic culture, you have the principles of nature, which are the Neteru. Yeah. And each week, he brought you through a specific gateway. And that gateway, you know, opened you up to becoming a stronger, enlightened, caring, considerate man. And, you know, it shifted everything. At the time, I had two sons. I was a 24-year-old with two children, 18 months apart. So I needed a lot of help. You know, let's just
absolutely.
You already know. So it's not to say that my parents didn't raise me the right way, but I was just given like the Caribbean culture, you know. Yeah. And I was still very thirsty for who I was. I was searching for the I am as an African person. I was, you know, I was always writing and searching and dreaming about hieroglyphics. And when I came across this elder who was also an artisan, you know, he was making all of this jewelry. So it wasn't just the fact that he was able to give me this information, but he was like, hey, I'm a craftsman. And all of these different symbols that I had grown up seeing, like the Eye of Ra and the Eye of Heru and the Ankh and all this other stuff, like now he was wearing them. And so to me, it's like I wanted to know more and more and more about who this person was. What's going on, Tak?
Peace, brother. How you doing?
We just like Bob. I was like, wait, who's this? You know, I like this idea. It's like when you were telling me about all the different groups that came together. It just reminded me of the Justice League. You know,
yeah.
The Comedic Justice League. All you guys came together for this event. And so, family, this is the event that's on the 6th. Okay. And I see, shout out to Sanjetti. I see him in the chat. He also put the link in, and the link is, we're putting the actual link where you can go click and just reserve, you know, your place. All right. So, we also,
I just want to share also about Sunday.
Yep. We put up Sunday.
Cool. Before we shift over to all things HAPI. So Sunday is the 7th, and we will be at Mega Everett's College. That's 1650 Bedford Avenue at the Founders Auditorium. And we will have a full run of show there from 12 p.m. to 7. We'll have a variety of different speakers there, from Mfundishi Juhuti Mus to Sanjetti, who will be hosting rituals, the opening of the mouth ceremony, the weighing of the heart. We'll have different shrines there as well. We'll have Chester Higgins. I mean, there's a lot of it's a full run of show and guests that will, you know, that we don't even want to mention, so that way, you know, there's some kind of mystery to it.
Yeah, we like a little intrigue.
Mystery's good, right? Mystery's a little good. We can't give you everything. We got to keep you guessing. But it's something that we've been working on for 7 weeks now, and it wasn't a turnkey thing. Again, shout out to Leighton for really stepping forward and making sure that his father's legacy was remembered and celebrated correctly by the community. And I think that we're all learning a lot from this because we learned a lot from Dr. Ben's transition, from Dr. Clark's transition, and what it really means like when we got to come together as a community to ensure that our elders transition, but also remembered, and all of the back end stuff that people just kind of they just want to celebrate the front end, but they don't necessarily take responsibility for the back end. So it's really teaching me a lot about what needs to be done, and kind of like what you entitled this, right? And like moving forward, what it means like for the next pillars in the community. I think that we always like to reflect and about who our elders were and how strong they were and everything else. And we are a culture of social media, entertained, likable, like people, versus showing up and really having to take care of things even when we don't want to, even when we don't like each other. Some certain things that have to be taken care of, and it really doesn't matter whether you like me or not, right? But we've become a culture of likable things that that's just kind of how we operate and how we interact with each other. But as far as being leaders, leaders aren't always liked. Leaders aren't always the good guy. But I think that at the same time too, with the correct leadership that's not driven by ego, things can get done.
Yeah, the common goal.
Yeah, things can get done.
Yeah, because I was just, you think about all these different, pieces that you're putting together, and sometimes it's like you say, like we may not, have the same thought process about something, but if we can just keep our eyes on the thing that we all agree on, then it can be, successful.
Yeah. I mean, I think kind of to transition to Taaqiy, who I know is I think about it when we first met. Baaba Heru introduced us, and there was no formality about it. He was like, "Listen, Seed calls me up. I got somebody here that I want you to meet." And it was like, "This is Taaqiy," and it was like, okay. And he said, "Hey, I'm working on this. I've created this." He sent me some stuff, and what he sent me was solid, and I was like, wow, okay, this man is thinking, and I believe it was like Tekken. He sent me Tekken, and I was just kind of like also intrigued, because that's a big part of it. As a filmmaker, you have to understand, as a person, as a human being, that you don't know everything, right? Mm-hmm. So when you meet someone and they got someone to teach you, and I was like, wow, okay, I could learn something from this brother. And it just became that. Like, I never put myself in a position where I knew more than him. I didn't position myself that I knew more than him as a filmmaker. I didn't position that I knew more than him as a father. It was just kind of like, so all of these things just gradually, we just start walking. Now we start taking this path. And I think from the moment that I met Taaqiy to 2 weeks later, we were catching flights. Am I saying that incorrectly, Taaqiy, or is that?
Oh, you know what? Wait, I like that, catching flights. But wait, before we get to flights, let me make sure everybody knows. So, family, listen. The link is in the chat. Okay, so make sure if you're going to come, if you're going to do both, they're free events. If you want to come out, Seed already said it's going to be some, intrigue there. We keep using the word intrigue, but there's going to be some, people and everybody of everybody, is going to be there. So make sure you just hit the link and get the an RSVP for your spot. Okay, and this is again December 6th and December 7th. So.
Yeah. I just want to give the plug one more time. Again, this it's December 7th for the Mega Everett's at the Founders Auditorium. We'll have Jehuti Mas, we'll have Professor James Small, we'll have members of the Shrine of Ptah, the Fine Sacred Kingman, we'll have Queen Afua, we'll have Chester Higgins, we'll have Brother Sanjetti with different multiple rituals, and we'll have a lot of people in attendance who the goal here now is that we have an opportunity within the run of show to be able to allow everyone to speak and to attend. We also have, the Shrine of Best, which is Dance Africa. They'll be performing as well. So it'll be a mixture of, I also have some excerpts of interviews of like a 8-minute piece that I put together of Baaba Heru. So, the overall goal is that he brings us together once again, because he's done that many, going on 50 years. He brings us together once again, and that we are able to kind of unify Smaitawi without any BS, and really raise up his Ankh, raise up his life as he showed us in harmony, in Ma'at. And, I'm really looking forward to seeing all of y'all coming out. And I think it's necessary. I think at the end of the day, it's not about us. It's not about our egos. It's not about whether we like each other or not. It's about coming together for our elder and celebrating his life, which is, which is what we're all about. So please come through and celebrate with us. Again, that's Saturday the 6th in Harlem and Sunday the 7th this weekend in Brooklyn at Mega Everett's.
All right, beautiful. And we'll show them again, and we'll also we can post them on our all of our pages. It's on everybody's page. You come to Facebook, everybody has on their page, so that's what's up. So you talked a little bit about what Baaba Heru meant to you, in your crucial stage of 24 years old and with your 2 kids that are 18 months apart. Yeah. So is there anything else you want to add about just what he meant to you?
Yeah, no, I think that what I want to set the tone is what it was like in what so-called conscious culture at that time. You had a lot of Dr. York, you have the Nuwabians selling books and stuff like that. And then, you had the Hebrew Israelite culture out and about. And I'm talking about in the city of New York, where we're from, where Taaqiy and I are from. And then you had these obscure bookstores. Am I wrong in saying that, Taaqiy? You had these, right? And so if it wasn't something that was just spoon fed to you. Now later I found out, you had different libraries, you had different places that you could go to. You had but keep in mind, when you're young and you're just getting involved in this, you don't see all those things. So as these things started getting unpacked to me, breadcrumbs, which is what I call that Baaba Heru started giving us breadcrumbs. I started, finding out about, Sarasat Society and the different temples that were around, and from Dishi Jehuti Mas and so forth and so on, and the Dr. Leonard Jeffries and Dr. Henry Clark and Dr. Ben. And I was like, oh, wait a second, there's more out here. And it started opening up my eyes. But Sanor, meaning Baaba Heru, was special because he lived the culture. He was like a walking piece of comedic art. He wasn't just someone who turned off the lights, and when he turned off the lights, he was something else. So it wasn't like this theater performance where he had a split personality. He lived it, and he that images of Sanjetti and I at his studio. Sanjetti is leading this celebration of life with many of others of us, and he'll be leading all of the rituals that day, all the comedic rituals. This is a day that we went to visit him, and to just kind of just another day with our teacher. And we sat down and he opened up a Pertum Heru from the 1800s that he had bought.
Wow.
You have to see it. There's a couple other images that I have there, but he opened it up and it was like the size, of two human beings. It was it's huge Ptah Heru, and it was all hand drawn. And he had got it, and it was created. It was a bookstore in England, and we were just sitting down and having a discussion about it and talking about the 42 and so forth and so on. But so I'm sure, throughout this is going to be a lot of images, and it'll, drive some emotion with me. But, to kind of make a long story short, Sonor was responsible for just bringing me into a conscious awareness that would change the course of my life. There's so many things and so many people that I've met because of him. Supernova Islam, Dead Prez, Erykah Badu, Dr. Leela Africa, Dr. Sabi. These are all people that I was literally sitting with and engaging with in the 90s because of Sonor and because of Queen Afua. So those are the community elders that I went to in Brooklyn, and they kind of just literally opened up gateways. And, we first made our first film, which was called African Holistic Wellness for the hip hop generation. I believe that was in 2004 or something like that, with Erykah Badu, Ben Vereen, Dead Prez, Common, Dr. Leila Africa, and Supernova Islam was like the lead. And we were at that point, this was before Whole Foods, but at that time we were communicating to people and advocating about holistic wellness and how it was killing people in the hip hop generation. And, we lost Phife Dawg, there was a whole bunch of people dealing with diabetes and so forth and so on. And at that time, that was kind of like we planted the seeds, no pun intended, of, community service. So that was my first social justice move. And I thought it was really important because, when you start learning about the Neteru, you start learning about like healing your body, heal thyself, becoming more conscious of what you're putting into your body temple, which all leads to, being comedic. And that's the way that they were teaching. Wow. So that's kind of the approach as a filmmaker that I made. And so when Baaba Heru heard that Taaqiy was making a film, and he's a filmmaker, he was like, "Oh, I know a filmmaker. I'm gonna hook you up with seed." And that's how that whole thing came about. Now, my father had a film lab on 39th Street between 8th and 9th for 23 years called A1 Film Lab. It's no longer there. It's moved now. We don't really use film anymore, right? Everything is digital now.
Yeah, digital.
But that was one of the things. And my father knew Baaba Heru. My father went to my initiation. He wasn't like one of these, religious haters and stuff like that. He wasn't old school. He embraced everything that I was into, and actually helped Baaba Heru with one of his studios with carpentry and helping him put together his whole studio.
Okay.
So they we were all in communication. Like the families were in communication. A lot of people don't know it, but Baaba Heru is also from the Caribbean as well. So we kind of had all of those layers of communication. And I know that in the African-American community, they always give us shit because we know Spanish, right? And the way I look at it is like, this is an ongoing thing, right? Oh, you Spanish. Oh, you extra. It's like, so it is. So what? So English. So what are we comparing? Who knows the slave master's language better? They're both not our languages, right? But in any case, it's just a funny thing how we get some shit over that shit, right? But they're both not our language, right?
Yeah.
In any case, this is one of the things that in interacting with Taaqiy very quickly, I learned that this brother knows multiple languages as well. And, it was one thing to be introduced to him and say, "Oh, okay, well, I'm working on this film." And as American filmmakers, you don't necessarily think about leaving the country. You know what I mean? And if it's not like a turnkey thing. But that was Taaqiy already had his mind made up. He had already been there several times.
Wait, you skipping the story, Seed. Wait. We ain't overseas yet. We still at Baaba Heru.
Yeah.
All
okay.
right.
Okay.
I mean, so it's safe to say, I mean, God, I didn't know how ingrained he was in your, like, just really your coming of age. That's dope. That's dope. So Taaqiy, what did Baaba Heru mean to you?
Wow. I don't even know how to put that in words. But first, let me just say peace and love, happy family. It's been a while since I've been here with you guys. Happy to be back. Please like, comment, and share. This video was very important to us for many reasons. Because when I think of Baaba Heru, one of the first things that come to mind, and I'm going to kind of segue on something Seed said about walking the talk. And when he said that, it was something I was already thinking about. But when I think about it, yeah, he was definitely culturally walking the talk. But for me, it was more so the character piece, right? I've been in this community for a long time, and I've seen a lot of people do a lot of different things, some honorable, some not so honorable. But Baaba Heru was a cat that you could say his character always preceded him in the sense of being just and kind, very just, very upright type of person. And the only other person I can really think of to me that exemplified that all the time in that character in terms of really, really being not African externally, but an African internally is Dr. Jeffries. So that was the same kind of feeling I had when I met Dr. J for the first time. This is somebody who's really about this life. You know what I mean? So, and listen, people, sometimes we do things out of convenience. But like Seed said, Baaba Heru was a person that it definitely wasn't out of convenience. And he was definitely someone that really in his heart, like, we talk about these rituals and the duat and the way into the heart and all things like that. He was somebody I would see that will move forward because his heart would be lighter than the feather of my eye, because that's the type of person he was or is. So that is the first thing that come to mind. And even the way we met, I tell the story. I've told the story before. The flyer was out. It was circulating about HAPI. We had some of the cast members on there. And there may have been a notion that he felt slighted not being in that mix, but that was something that the film was not even, I think we might have shot a couple of interviews. We were nowhere near anywhere completing a project at that time. And it was something that I did to market. It was like a pre-marketing thing to help get support to the project. You know what I'm saying? It had 7 faces on the back of the flyer, and I was looking for it. I have it around here somewhere, but I can't find it right now. But anyway, the festival was in town. This had to be 2015. Yeah, I think it was the summer of 2015, and we was just out handing the flyers out, and or was it 2015 or 2016? I'm not sure of the year, but the bottom line is it served its purpose. Because Sakara called me, I talked to Professor Smalls because I heard of Baaba Heru. I knew the name, very familiar with it, but I didn't know the person. I said, go see him, go talk to him. So I called him. Hey, he said, come down, come see me. So we were just talking. We were just kicking it for hours. And the conversation, he asked me where we were, and I was like, we kind of stalled right now. You know what I mean? It's not like the project started to kind of hit a spot where it kind of just slowed down. And I said, I think I might have to start working with someone else. And that's when he's like, I got somebody. And I kind of turned my head. Next thing he was handing me the phone. So, you know what I mean? It was kind of like that kind of thing. And Seed and I talked, and we talked, and, we kind of started working through some things. Wow. You know what I mean? But just knowing him and being there in his presence that day and around him, the energy. And I've known a lot of people who did Comedics 101, a lot of my close friends and my brothers, some of my comrades. And just talking to them, they've always had really kind and very supportive things to say about him. So I was very familiar with the legacy, and with that being said, also Seed mentioned something about the title. We spent a lot of time, Felicia and I, really thinking about this, right? About the title, what it was going to say, how it was going to reflect to what we're doing. And when I think about Baaba Heru and I think about the things that we're doing, I think about the times that we're in. Baaba Heru was a really, really strong advocate of intergenerational wisdom in sharing spaces with young people. That's something else you don't necessarily see. If you want to do a critical analysis of where we are culturally in the community, sometimes we don't necessarily see that. But he was someone that really had a strong ties to younger people and created that bond and also passed on what he had. and it wasn't any type of competition spirit. It was just like really freely flowing, and that's key, because I think a lot of other cultures do that very well and very intentionally, but as a Black folks, we don't do that so great. We have a hard time sometimes, those two aspects, old and young, kind of coming together, locking in and having a flow from generation to generation. And he was the pinnacle of that, what I saw. You know, there was others too, but just speaking of legacy in motion and passing the torch and all these different things. So that for me is what Baaba Heru, what he represented.
Wow. So, you know, okay, so one of the things, because, you know, C said this and you said this too about the pick up the phone, and then, you know, all right, so you guys met over the phone or whatever. So then how did this move forward? How did HAPI, you know, continue? Because at this point, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me just back up, because, you know, because this is the other piece. If you could just give us just a little bit of context in terms of how did HAPI even begin with you, Taaqiy? Like before you even got to this point where you're making a poster with 7 pictures on the back. Like how did you like
flyers? It was a flyer.
It was a flyer.
It was a 4x6. I think that was the 4x6. Ever since then we do 5x7s. It was a 4x6 flyer, little pocket sized joint. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what we had out there, with nothing but just the name, and you know, but it was strategic, and it helped because it really was starting from nothing. Well, the Tekken, there was so much time between the Tekken and HAPI, right? And we're dealing with, you know, an attention span of a time where something happens today and tomorrow everybody forgets about it. So what happened 4 or 5 years ago in the Tekken, this is pre-social media. It was really kind of selling out of the back of the cars kind of thing. You know, that's what dealing with the Tekken was. Whatever conference was going on, whatever involvement was going on in the community, I may have been there with a table or something like that, but that was as far as it went. Some stuff was on the website, but there wasn't really a whole lot of traction. So for me, there was some thoughts of, if I ever did another film, like distribution was a big thing. And, you know, it was like, how do you get this to people? How do you make people aware of this? You know, so I started kind of coming up with some creative ways of doing different things. And one was that flyer. Like I said, the flyer came out before anything. You know, like I said, one of the, you know, the first videographer I was working with, my man Fredo, we did some interviews, we shot it, and it was like, okay, I got to kind of like think about ways to get people questioning. And, you know, I think we had a website also, you know, people interested in knowing more about it and getting their support, because nothing happens without the support of the community. And that was one of the biggest things that going into HAPI, we had to go the first Indiegogo before the GoFundMe, and it was things like trying to raise funds to get it going, things like that, get it off the ground. So just, again, just trying to figure out ways to just move the needle forward. So, I mean, after the phone call, we talked, and Fredo and I were still in production. We were still shooting things. And one of the big things was Ghana. And he went to Ghana with Professor Smalls in summer of 16. And all the Ghana piece that people see in the film was shot during that period. But it was still like, we have to do more. So at this time, it's funny because when Fredo was in Ghana, Seed and I met up in the city, Starbucks, downtown, 14th Street. I remember like it was yesterday. And Fredo gave me the drive, I gave it to Seed. And Seed looked at it, and he saw the interviews. He saw what we had, and he was like, all right. He started organizing the folders, things like that. And he started getting at me. You know, he started getting at me. And one of the things he was saying was like, hey, listen, you got some good stuff here, but we need to do some of this stuff over. And I started to think about it, and I was like, damn, I don't want to do this over. It was already so much is done. But I said, to his credit, you know, he pushed me. And I was like, you know what? All right, let's go. And, you know, it took time, but we had to kind of come back to some of the people we had. We went back to them several times, actually, but it was always something else we needed later on. But just the initial, the Professor Smalls, the Dr. J's, the Infudishi, Boyce, I don't know who else was in that mix, but I know those four names come to mind, was Wade Nobles. Those names came to mind, and we had to kind of like go back to doing that over again. So credit to Seed and his eye for seeing it in the quality and the level what it should have been, what it should be, versus what it was. And we kind of went back, grabbed those things, and then we started moving forward from there.
Yeah, I think a big part of it, you know, to Fredo's credit, because Fredo's a really good cinematographer, and one of the things that I just want to add is that, you know, when somebody says, "Oh yeah, I'm working on this," and they show you it, right? If it's garbage, you're like, I'm not messing with you no more, right? But when he showed it to me, I was like, oh, this shit is, you know, this is good. And I believe it was like all these different scenes with Mfundishi, and Mfundishi is at, you know, at the Freedom Tower. You know what I'm trying to? I know at that time was something else, right? And he has his Ankh and everything. And I was like, wow, this is like really cinematic. Okay. And I think that one of the things that Taaqiy was pointing out was that we had to really go in on the audio, right? That was kind of my broadcast background, my film background. I was like, the audio's got to sound better. It's got to be better than the visual. And then we just kind of started making sure that everybody was live, that there was clean audios, multiple tracks of audio, so forth and so on. So that way later that wouldn't be an issue. But I think that overall, you know, to Taaqiyy's credit, the thing that he's not speaking about is, okay, so I gotta set the table here and saying, you have Dr. Henrik Clark, right? And you have Dr. Ben, and they were the pillars, right? And then you have, you know, the kids that come in later, right? The kids that come in later is Baaba Heru, is Dr. Leonard Jeffries, you know, is Mfundishi, right? These are all the people that come in later. So to my credit, Baaba Heru is my teacher. And from what I learned later, based on the relationship, because it wasn't just teacher, but it was friendship, the friendship that Taaqiy had with Dr. Leonard Jeffries is really what led to this, right? Because if I had a question about something or someone, I would go to Baaba Heru and I would ask him, and then Baaba Heru would open up a door, right? Oh, that's Chester Higgins, blah, 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 right? Who Chester becomes another very pivotal person in this, because as a cinematographer, when you're talking about going and shooting somewhere on the continent, you got to speak to somebody who's done it before. There's no hypotheticals to this. And you know, when it came down to asking questions about like, oh, I'm going to such and such temple, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to do this, I actually spoke to somebody who had been there, you know, several times. So that was, and I think that in what I saw from Taaqiy was, when I would ask him a question, he had already, because that's the thing he's not talking about, right? A big part of it was the flyers, he's saying whatever. But Taaqiy had already been there several times. He had already had relationships with people in Africa. He already spoke Arabic. So a lot of this stuff wasn't just like, he wasn't just figuring this out. He had already roadmapped this, and he just kind of needed a cinematographer. He needed somebody that understood production, a DP. And then I guess all the pieces, like they say, of the Voltron force started coming together, and we were able to just take off because, you know, it just, once we started, there was no looking back. I remember the phone call Baaba Heru gave me, and I think it was the following day, or maybe like 48 hours went by, and we were already sitting down editing, which is, it just doesn't really happen that way, you know. But it did, and like I said, shortly after, probably like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, because keep in mind, he had already tasked Fredo with Professor Smalls to Ghana, and he was communicating with me, hey, can you do such and such? And I was like, nah, man, I got a weapon put I gotta be at. I can't do that. So you remember all that talk? I was like, nah, I can't do it. And as soon as that ended, oh, we were taking off to Kemet. I was like, oh, this guy's serious. Okay.
I'll share this, and that's something I was debating as well, share not. So one of the things that is some serendipity in this, because, you know, and I have some of this is we kind of do it by the seat of our pants, and it's a feeling with the spirit kind of moves you in a certain way, and you see what doors open up, especially for a project of that magnitude, right? So we worked on I worked on Nubia, the untold story in the Tekken, uncovering the influence of ancient Egypt with 360 Media. And we were originally supposed to do HAPI back in 2011 with 360 Media. But all that kind of got pushed to the side, other things happened. So it got shelved. So when it came back around years later to do it, of course, obviously they were the ones with Fredo who we were all together having the production meeting about it. Then we decided to kind of do it a different way. Maybe about 6-7 months later, things kind of changed. It was a conversation about them coming back into the project. So I was like, all right, cool. We had what we shot already, Fredo and I, we had the drive. They couldn't read it. You know, they couldn't look at they couldn't open the drive. So when that happened, you know, Seed and I conversation started to intensify. He got the drive, he was able to open it. So I said, this is the way we got to flow. You know, so when that happened, I said, you know what, let it flow this way. Don't try to stop it. Just flow the way that it's supposed to flow. And that's something that I'm glad I did and listen to, you know, Spirit in that way and saying flow with it this way because this is the way you're supposed to go with it. And that was, you know, so listening to the instinct, you got whatever you want to call it, but it was definitely a moment that there was a crossroad.
Yeah.
In seeing what was going to happen. And, you know, it's always hard to work with someone you don't know versus people you've had history with for 2 films already. So there was a working relationship over years, and not only films, but other things we've done together. So it was a very, very just like, hey, I'm coming to your house, knock on the door. I'm submitting, like it was that type of relationship. So it was easy for me to go that way, but something was like, yeah, Spirit doesn't want you to go this way because it has to be something different. And the other thing with thinking about the time span between Tekken and HAPI was the fact that it was like, I didn't want to just do another historical doc. When you see people, they watch it 2 minutes later, they kind of forget about it. The impact isn't there. We need something greater. So, you know, shout out to Rock for and always in that time between Tekken and HAPI, he was, hey, yo, Talk, let's do another film. I was like, nah, man, I'm good. I didn't really want to do anything like that until some other things came up, and it was like, you know what, yeah, it's time. But HAPI, as we were saying it from day one, HAPI is more than just a film. And that's the thing for me that sold me on HAPI was the fact that it is what it is now. And it was like kind of foreseeing what it was going to become. You know, sometimes the film almost gets lost in the conversation. We got to remind you, there's a whole film. Sometimes I forget about it.
Whole film.
You know what I'm saying? And it's the foundation, right? HAPI is the foundation for the HAPI movement. But there's so many things, so many elements to the HAPI. We made this flyer one time with all the tentacles of HAPI. There was like 10 different things going out of just HAPI, the core, the film, the screen, all these different things that has happened. But the film being the foundational piece, like I said, I'm happy, no pun intended, that we took the road that we did, the road going into Seed and saying, hey, we want to do it here because it helps set the stage for everything we're doing today.
Yeah. So, you know, Seed, I want to ask you, just, you know, this is like a production question, because, you know, when you look at this film, it's shot beautifully. Okay, it's shot beautifully. What was your process? I mean, because it seems like you were kind of thrown in it, you know, like you two were kind of thrown together and you just started. So like what were you thinking in terms of just, what did you like the look of it? Like how did you come up with the look of the film, if that makes sense? You know, like what's your process for that, your creative process?
Well, there's a couple of different things. I mean, the other part of it too is that we're not doing any of this alone, right? We have elders and we have people that we have to credit to. You know, Chester Higgins was a big inspiration. He had somebody that had spent a lot of time shooting the churches of Lalibela in Ethiopia. He had spent a lot of time on the Nile, just in general. And in Nubia, in Sudan, in Ethiopia. And I had met Chester from working on a film, Reflections of a Blessed Soul, which was an interview we did with Maya Angelou. And that was the first time that I had met Chester. And I said, you know, something. I like this guy. I like the way he's very soft spoken. You know, he's a very gentle soul. He's a Scorpio like I am, so it's kind of like gentle, but you know, we got to bite. Don't play around. And so it was one of those things where, like, you know, oh, wait a second, I have a situation now where I could ask Chester some questions and so forth and so on. And because of my film background, I led more towards like people that did it from way back, right? People that did it in the 60s, 70s. Like that's what I was thinking of when Taaqiy started talking to me about. But see, the whole thing was Taaqiy was how do I explain this? Taaqiyy's also a teacher. He doesn't come off and come off like he's a professor, he's a teacher, whatever. But the way that he went about unpacking, you know, oh, we're going to, you know, 5 or 6 different temples, and you know, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. Some of that information he gave, and some of it he left as a mystery. You know what I mean? And so I just had to kind of equip myself. I had to make sure that I had my goodies in my bag. Mm-hmm. And what I learned the first time, because now I think we ended up going there 3 times, right, Todd? Was it 3 times? Yeah. So what I learned as I went along, Akmarie and I, what to pack, what not to pack, you know, how to stay, because a big part of it wasn't just getting the shot. It was also, you know, night becomes day, day becomes night. You have to be of clear mind, right? You have to be focused to stay in focus. It's like all of these other things that you don't necessarily think of, but they're extremely relevant, because now Chester calls it, we are light chasers. So we're chasing Amen and Aten, and we have to now become this one union to be able to capture these things. So at first I was like, well, why are we getting up so early? Like, well, you know, wait a second, I didn't even sleep. You know, we had to get up so and be there at a certain time and so forth and so on. And sometimes we planned, like we had a production plan, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And sometimes things just happen that things got totally thrown left. So like the very first time that we went, I'll give you an example. We were scheduled to interview Zahi Zawis. He was the first interview slated, right? And when we went and we landed in Italy, in Rome, Air Italia had a strike. So now we were stuck in Italy for like an additional 12 hours. So that was our window to like rest and be ready that next morning to interview Zahi Zawis in front of Khufu. Okay. So it's like one of these things where like, not only was it the first time I was there, it's the first time I'm in Egypt. I land, I haven't really slept. Like Taaqiy and I, he was like, well, let's go see the Pantheon. Let's go see, you know, he's trying to distract me. He's trying to play these Jedi Yoda mind tricks with me. Like, don't worry about it. We don't need to check it in. We could just go, let's go get some pizza. Let's go. And I'm like, man, you know, I didn't sleep. Okay. So we go do, and you know, you're excited, right? You're another side of the planet. You're looking at all these things. I think I slept whatever that little window was. We both slept for like 6 hours to get from Rome to Egypt to Cairo. But you're excited, right? That's the other part of it too. You're going to a new place. You're a cinematographer. You already have these expectations. And Taaqiy was like, yeah, been there, done that. Like he was just so cool. I'm like, how's this guy so cool? Like everywhere we walked into, they check every single battery, every single lens. It's like this whole process. There's people walking around us with machine guns and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, what has this guy got me into? And, you know, we went from not sleeping to now I'm right there, boom, to interview Zahi Zawis. Am I saying this correctly, Taaqiy?
Yeah.
But you guys are, but okay, just 2 things. First of all, it's so funny that you're saying this, Seed, because by the time I came, it must have been your 3rd trip back, and you were like Taaqiy to me. You were just like, oh, they're gonna do this. Yeah, you had your suitcase packed the way you needed to. You was like, bam, 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 we're gonna do this. And I was just sitting there starry-eyed. And I do remember before I left, you told me to get an ND filter for my camera.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So you were like totally like, yo, I got this by the time. But yeah,
what did I mean, because you asked me a question, I hope that I answered the question. There were certain things like I knew it wasn't going to be like Sankofa. You get what I'm saying, Felicia? Like I knew that it wasn't going to have like that kind of feel. I knew that it was going to be like dusty. It was going to be real bright, and then it was going to be the reverse of that, like shadows. We had to have light. I knew that whatever light package I had to be battery operated, because the fact that, oh, where are you going to plug into? Like, that's what I'm thinking in my head. Oh, we're going to be in this tomb somewhere. We're going to be such and such, because that was, Taaqiy's laundry list. That was like, hey, he's giving me all these different things as a DP. And I just had to figure it out. And the other part of it too was I didn't want to be carrying a whole lot of stuff in that really hot, but it happened anyway. Like we were, I had to bring gear that wasn't going to die in the sun either. So it was like all of these different, I had to bring reflectors to be able to use the sun. I had to bring different lenses and different ND filters for the different lenses. All of these things started, showing up. Mm-hmm. And I think that, being there in that moment, Dr. Zawis, he was like, oh, you're late, let's go, boom, boom, boom. He was just very animated, right? And so he's like that way. Like, did you see him on television? He's like that all the time. He's bossy, he's fussy, he's and the thing is, I guess you have to be that way for doing what he does, right? You kind of have for as long as he's been doing that. Mm-hmm. And I had to separate myself from the fact that I'm in front of this Merkut for the first time, and I'm having this ancestral recollection. I'm, like Dr. Browder or Anthony Browder talks about, is like, this memory, reawakening my memory, my ancestral memory, and I'm interviewing this not so nice person in front of us, I'm trying to say, and Taaqiy and him are going back and forth at it, and I'm being as professional and Aquamarine is being professional as we could possibly can to just get what we need. And but it was very like boom, boom, boom. It wasn't like, oh, we didn't get that. Can you do it again? No. It was very much like a performance. He got on the mic, he did his freestyle, boom, 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 boom. And that was it. And he was on the bus and he left. And it was just, and then here I'm left, like looking at this Merkut, and I'm like,
yeah, that's why
I just had to just,
I gotta step in for a second. And I almost want to apologize, because realizing that is your first time there, and we hit the ground from the airport straight to the site. We didn't go to the hotel. We didn't have time for that. Damn. From the airport straight to Giza. And at this point, I've probably been to Giza a million times, but this is their first time there. And like he said, it was like we walked up to him, oh, y'all late, let's go. And it was like it was like he did it like one take, everything perfect. It was no do that over, nothing. It was every question that was asked, it was boom, 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 boom. And it was like one of the quickest, we used a lot of that interview, but we had so much meat there in a short period of time. And it was like rapid fire, it was amazing. But just listening to see it and hearing from his perspective in terms of being there in Giza for the first time and doing this, that had to be a lot. That had to be
absolutely
a lot. You know what I'm saying? Had to be a lot, but that wasn't the plan. That wasn't the plan. Right. It wasn't. No, the plan was because we were late, and there was a situation. I always forget about that thing in Italy, but that delayed us. That pushed production back. You know what I mean? And when we got to Egypt, it was like, okay, we got to just go straight there. We're supposed to be there the night before. Something happened, but he knew that our flight was delayed too, which is interesting. I really kind of wish I would have asked him that. Like, how the hell you know? But he was like, yeah, I know about your flight. And I know what happened in Italy. But I didn't tell him. You know what I mean? But he knew this. So that's the interesting part.
Everybody knows your business in Egypt. So in other words, it's like, and the other part of it too is that, I didn't expect for it to be that way. In other words, like we had a bus, we had, an escort, we had, the different inspectors that went and would meet us. It was it was like a different, it's not only that I now go to Northern Africa for the first time, but I was spoiled. I was completely spoiled. Like going there again and not having that kind of situation, it wouldn't be the same. It would just kind of be like, Taaqiy completely spoiled me and Akmarit in that regard, that's like, now we expected that was the experience.
I'll say this with HAPI, and I know I'm getting off track here a little bit, but what HAPI gave us, but I can speak for myself, but was access, right?
Yeah.
To places and things you can't normally see if you go to Egypt.
Yeah.
HAPI unlocked doors, to certain tombs and certain sites that you just can't go see. So that, for me, when people are not, this is why it's so important to watch, because you may not see these things anyplace else.
Yeah.
These are places trying to get to for years. It's like, no, you can't go there. Tourists can't go there. But doing the film and the production, HAPI opened doors. HAPI, there's like, whatever you want to do, just tell us. Anything in Egypt you want to see. And there's a lot in Egypt you cannot see. There's a lot in Egypt that's closed. So, but, at the time, that tomb still, like KB 36, we go to, we're in the Valley of the Kings, Mahapra, that tomb still had a door in it during that time.
Is that Harkuf?
No, Mahapra in the Valley of the Kings.
Okay.
I wish I would have asked for access to that tomb.
Wow, they had a door?
They had a door. Now it's all cemented closed. Actually, it's a door now, but I'm not sure. Either way, it was still an opportunity. It was a window there in filming that. And that would have been a hell of a tomb to film. But, maybe something we'll do in HAPI too. But, HAPI again gave access to things that you wouldn't normally see, and places inside the pyramids and other tombs. So it's anything that's just there, you can see. This is Harkuf here. You can see actually Harkuf standing in the background, but that was such an interesting place. And Harkuf was such an interesting person, just in the storyline of relationships to the kingdoms of the Nile. Is always a place that I wanted to go, and it's there in Aswan and it's open. But up until the time of doing HAPI, I haven't gone there, and that was my first time actually in that tomb. So it was a very special moment for me. There was a lot of firsts for me doing HAPI. I've been to Egypt a lot. Giza obviously is a place we all go to when you're there, but there were so many other places that was a first. Derabalis, Harkuf, what's my man's name? It'll come to me, of a tomb in El Kab. But these are places. Excuse me? No. The other one. There were tombs and places that we just couldn't do without HAPI. So, I'm always giving praise and thanks to the spirit of HAPI and the ancestors for guiding us that way, and kind of just listening and paying attention to the cues. And like I said, one of the cues was to work with Tahuti Films. There was a lot of other cues too. So it was always just kind of just paying attention and like Seed said, paying attention to those breadcrumbs. Because when you see them, you got to pay attention to them. You got to be able to read the language of spirit and know where it's guiding you. And this process was definitely one of those things where you really had to listen and pay attention and keep your ears kind of close to the ground.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, again, I'll say that Taaqiy downplays like what he knew and what he was communicating. And he's one of those brothers that wasn't walking with ego. And now going back to the Baaba Heru thing, Baaba Heru was also one of those people too. I feel that way about him from Dishi Jehuti Mas as well. And, when I start to think about Baaba Heru, Baaba Heru was very much a practitioner, right? He, like I said, he was a walking ritual, right? He was singing, he was teaching, he was carving, he was doing all this stuff. And I realized, there's this difference between like practitioners and people that are into academic understanding, and not Egyptologists, but have an academic African-centered lifestyle, right? And that was Taaqiy. So Taaqiy was saying, not only are we going to go to Kemet, but we're going to study and investigate this general that had to do with setting up this quadrant here that now allowed economics to flourish within this time period. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, now that opens up your mind And so I still think that there's aspects of HAPI that still need to be unpacked, right? Because it's such a dense film. Now I know Taaqiy did his best to kind of, create, like he was talking about, create breadcrumbs for people to get it. But that in and of itself is like, I think some of us are just still coming to the understanding of identifying, oh, we're those people that lived in that period. That's who we are. And then Taaqiy was taken to the next level. He was like, yes, and we did all of these great things. On top of that, we were in the military, we had commerce, we were artisans. So let me break down this general to you. And then I was kind of like, oh man. And not only that, but he knew how he wanted it shot. So he and I, we would get into it there on location because he's like, no, I want it shot like this. And I'm like, well, where the hell are we going to put the light? Like, wait, I know you want that shot. And I think that there was one moment that I'm like trying to get an angle and I slipped, you almost break yourself because it was that it had never been done before. So for the purpose of not only watching HAPI for what it is, just understand that this is a collective of Black filmmakers that came together that did something that had never been done before. We had to go and request permission, and I had to go, to the Minister of Antiquities, and I'm like, what are we doing here? And he's talking Arabic and everything else, and I'm just sitting there. I had to just be patient and humble myself and be like, okay, well, I'm about to learn. And we had to get like badges. So that way, we were now authorized to do these things. It wasn't like, oh, let's just pull out our camera phone and we gonna get the shot. We gonna stitch this shit together. Like, it wasn't that kind of show. It was something that he had planned, that he had deliberated, that he had communicated with the complete full staff of 20 other people that were involved, that were there on boots on the ground. And all of this stuff came together 3 different times, 3 different years that we went. I'm assuming, Taaqiy, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that the first trip was 5 to 7 sites. Am I wrong in that?
I think it might have been more than that. I still got the paperwork somewhere. I still got because with that you had to actually all put it all in writing to get the approval and authorization. Mm-hmm. Nah, it was definitely more than that because it was almost everything in Luxor. It was the pyramids in Cairo. It was the places in between in El Kab. It was Aswan. We didn't go to Abu Simbel the first time, but it was quite a bit. It might have been like 10 different sites. So yeah, we did a lot. Definitely did a lot. And a lot of it, just understanding the process was kind of through trial and error, because I tried that once upon a time to kind of go there and just get my camera and film some stuff. It didn't work very well. So, and the places I wanted access to, I couldn't get access to. And that was one of the reasons it made me kind of just pause the project. This is maybe about 5 or 6 years before I met Seed. Like, it's because HAPI was something that was kind of thought of, but it was just different at that point. But anyway, just understanding the process and how to do it and how to do business correctly. It was a pivot. I did my research and I reached out to the Egyptian embassy and said, what is the process of getting your press credentials? They sent me the process. This is what you do. This is who you contact. And you start working from the process from there. But the most beautiful thing about this, and this is why I tell you, these things sometimes you can't make them up. So the person who controls, who I call is a gatekeeper for all film productions that come into Egypt, was a good friend of someone I've known in Egypt for almost 30 years. And it just so by happenstance that just by talking to him, and it's like, yeah, that's my friend. So once I put those two people together and not put them together, but the fact that we all kind of knew each other, everything kind of changed. Then they kind of handle you differently because they know that you know other people, you know, and they have people who were advocating for us outside of them. So the world became, one thing about HAPI, the world became really small. You know, you think you're across the world, you may not know that person, but these people got people you know. And it was really that close in terms of like degrees of separation. And once I kind of saw that, that was one of those signs where it's like, there's something else at play here. You need to just pay attention to what's going on, because there's forces here greater than you, because these are things that are happening outside of your control and kind of moving things along in ways. That's why it's hard for me to take credit for some of this stuff, because I kind of see it like, you know, sometimes it's not you, it's just other things moving it. And you just kind of just learn how to flow. Don't be rigid and just flow with it so that it's successful. And that's the hardest things for, you know, I guess people to do. I know for myself, I can speak. Just sometimes letting go. And it's hard because you're creating this, right? But you also have to learn how to let go as you're making it, you know? And that's one of the lessons there for me.
You know, I'm just going to just add this on, family, is that it's so interesting, like listening to you say that, because that to me, I feel like you do that so well, you know, and working with you, and, you know, and C kind of alluded to this too. You know, there's a lot, you know, you'll tell, oh, do this, do that, do that. And, you know, one thing, and I guess I'm saying this to you, C, is that I realized that when Taaqiy's asking you to do something, and even if you're just like, how the hell is this going to get done? He already knows that you have the capability of doing it. Even though you may not feel like you do yourself, you know, it's so amazing to me, because I'm like, I would never think I could do certain things. He's like, oh, just do blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? But yeah. But that's wild that you just got to Egypt and just had to run. Because I could imagine, how are you putting up the tripod and looking at the pyramid behind you and not like, wow.
Yeah. Wow. That's why I said I think I owe him an apology, because that was such a.
I mean, you know, and the other part of it too, the person that we're not speaking enough about here is Ankh Marie, because Ankh Marie was kind of like the, you know, she's like, well, you could get the shot, well, get it like this, you know, wait a second, come around over here, like no, you know, and sometimes she would be the referee, right? But I think for the most part, we're all kind of laid back kind of personalities. He would say to me, you know, this is what I'm looking for, this is the site, and you know, this is kind of what I want to do about it. And then at some point in time, when we first started shooting, Taaqiy wasn't in the film, right? He was like, he wasn't in other words, like, he's always directing, but he was directing and not on camera. And I said, wait a second, man, we need to get you in this film. We need to, you know, we need to have you speaking about such and such. So it was like things started flourishing, things started growing. We started looking back at footage and we started saying, wait, there's really nobody else is going to say, because he would say to me, oh, this is what I want to do. And I'm like, well, who are we going to get to say that? And we like think about it. And I'm like, well, there's got to be you. Yeah, you're the one that's got to say, and you got to say it just the way you said it. So there was, you know, it's like he's director, then I'm directing him. Then we're sitting back and looking at it and saying, wait a second, we need a voiceover artist. Because there's all this in between this span. It's like, how are we going to get from here to over here? We need somebody to tell, you know, how to kind of guide us through that journey. Because now keep in mind, Taaqiy was very ambitious, not just ambitious financially of what it took to make this film, but he was very ambitious in like communicating something that happened over a very long extended period of time, and also dealing with an audience that was getting their ass whooped by cognitive dissonance. And it's kind of like, well, how do I now put these pieces that I know to be true? There's evidence of this, but how do I communicate that to an audience? So that's where like we all wore different hats. Even you, Felicia, Ankh Marie, she was like, producer. Sometimes she was an editor. She's sitting there editing with Taaqiy, and they're working through dialogue. I had to walk away. I was frustrated, or yeah. I mean, that's what it was. It's real.
Wait, I got a question here. This is some little HAPI stuff I didn't know. Wait, Taaqiy, was it always your plan to be in HAPI?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because there were certain things I knew I could only deliver, like the stuff in Egypt. For the most part, certain things I wanted to stay, but it was there was other pieces that we needed. But Egypt kind of came later on, So we were shooting. The first time we went was like May of 2017. So really, we were probably shooting because Ghana was summer 2016. So kind of right after that, and I started kind of doing some things. So really from, I would say, summer of 2016, almost to the 20 of 2017 was almost a whole year before we got into the Egypt piece.
Yeah, and how many countries did you guys shoot across?
What was it? Well, we were in Belgium. We did that. It was Italy,
Switzerland, in Switzerland.
So it was with those four.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Those four. Then we was from east to west coast, north to south, in the continent of the United States. There was a lot that was done here. So that was always an interesting thing, and it was just listen, I'm honored and I'm pleased to have been a part of this experience because, like I said, I gained so much. Boston, this is a very this even just executing this was a lot, and shout out to Seed and his family in Tutti Films for being a part of it. In terms of some of it was waiting to get permits. This was a permit type of execution in the boss. This is the Museum of Fine Arts family. This is the Nubian exhibit there. And there we have here an interview with Saramhotep. And, even doing this, we had to really kind of get documentation and really allow them. And we had to do it before the museum even opened. So we was there like 6 o'clock in the morning. So a lot of it was kind of on some no sleep kind of thing. But opened up, like I said, HAPI opened up doors. It gave us access. It gave us access in ways we wouldn't have regularly.
Yeah, I mean, there were certain things that, like, you could get Chancellor Williams' book, you could get Cheikh Anta Diop's book and so forth and so on. But there were certain things that now, like, we were going and we were looking at and we were communicating with some of these authors. We were communicating with some of the students of these authors. One of the trips that I think that really stuck out to me, and Felicia, you and I were talking about this, was like the adding the female and element to it, the feminine aspect to it, and then all the contributors that became, the women that contributed to HAPI, and that was a big part too. The reason why I say that is because I had to, catch a flight. I think I flew into Tennessee. I drove from Tennessee to Mississippi, interviewed Dr. Ricchetti, then got back in the car, drove back to Tennessee, got on the flight to Tennessee, back to Newark, and that all happened in one day. There was no like hotel, this, that, or the other, and it was just kind of like, but we were excited about it. It was like, we got this interview with Dr. Ricchetti, finally, okay, let's go, boom. And to me, that's what I'm talking about, where the practitionership, the ritual part, having a spiritual connection to it, caught up with the academic part of, that's Mama Jeffries there, and I could see look at Taaqiyy's, the look on his face. I purposely chose this one. There was several other ones, but I purposely chose this one.
Yeah, because we have the other one. This.
Yeah, they have a great relationship, and and he also has a great relationship with Dr. J, and I think that you got to understand some of these individuals' personalities. These are professors, these are academics, these are like monoliths in the community, and you're sitting with them and they're talking to you, so forth and so on. We had the opportunity. I think we flew into San Francisco to interview Dr. Nobles, and Dr. Jeffries I don't know exactly how. I don't even know if I'm mixing. In other words, some of it is a blur to me, but like looking through the pictures, I think we caught a train from San Francisco to Sacramento for a screening, and we got to take that train with Dr. J. And and then I got to just hear them talk, and they're just
that's the confusion. So the train we took, and Felicia and I was just talking about this other day, was from New York to Baltimore, and Dr. J was on it. And that's when they had the thing in Baltimore, and we interviewed Dr. Nobles, Professor Smalls. We did the Three Giants that night. We interviewed them together. Sacramento, we did go up there for the screening from San Francisco, but
Dr. Nobles wasn't there.
No, Dr. Nobles was in San Francisco, and we did the interview.
And they were there and in okay, that's what confused me. Okay.
Yeah, so they were in both places. And we had the HAPI screening in Sacramento that time. So that was those are all good times. But just thinking of the C mentioned something about the narration. He talked about the narration in a minute, and that was something again that came about in a very happy kind of way. Yes. We're on the beach 5 o'clock in the morning filming this Ifa ceremony, and one of the priestess, I'm like, you look familiar. I'm like, where do I know you from? And I'm looking at her and I'm like, wow. I was like, yeah, that's Fat Andy from the Get Down. For those, see, it was a Netflix series on hip hop, early hip hop. And she played a character, this gangster, but she's an award Tony winning artist, many shows on Broadway and TV and movie theater, all these different things she did. Lilius White, and she has a fantastic voice. And I said, we got our narrator now. Because at first we think about doing Professor Smalls, but he already had a narration part in the film. So it didn't really work well for the entire piece because he did the narration over the Ghana part. But when we saw her, it was like, this is perfect. So I reached out to her, asked her, and she was like, absolutely. So at that point, it was just coming up what we wanted her to say, and the rest was history. But that was the perfect person. So we were in the perfect place at the perfect time. Spirit put us there to do what we needed to do. And it happened. So just seeing her was like, yeah, this is it. And I knew it immediately.
Yeah, I think C gave me, I have a picture of her.
Yeah, I mean, we were able to get Dr. Solange Ashby. We were able to get
you guys got 30 scholars. You got 30 scholars, C.
That's the sister right there. Yeah, yep.
You got 30 scholars.
Yeah. I mean, it was we had Malvo, we had Rosalind Jeffries, we had Raketi Amin, we had Georgina Falou, the late practitioner Patricia Newton. We interviewed her twice, and Dr. Batalora, we interviewed her twice, and Mandy Bowman. So there was an influx of, at first it was like, it was just a lot of male characters, right? Because it just comes to what the topic and the subject matter was. It wasn't that Taaqiy didn't want to have women in the film. It's just like, okay, well, we had to reformulate this and figure out, how do we get these voices in there? How do we get this message in there? I remember, because I'm living in DC now, I think that was like the first time that I had been to DC as an adult to interview Dr. Malvo. And, she lived in this beautiful little house and, very well-spoken, very affluent mind. And she had a whole lot to say. And I just felt as though being and working on HAPI, I know Akmarie and I, like with the 4 years that we worked on HAPI, it was like taking a course, like a college course. I went to university because these individuals that we're sitting with, and you're sometimes interviewing them for 2 or 3 hours, setting it up, interviewing them, breaking down, so forth and so on. There was just the value in what I learned and what I took away from it. Also sitting in the editing room for hours, figuring this stuff out. There was and I don't mean to jump around, but I just kind of want to, this is a great, this was in Queens. Where was it?
Queens, Far Rockaway Beach.
In Queens. And you know, the light that day was perfect. I mean, it just like really worked out. But there was an other image that you had up where it's like Gano, myself, and Taaqiy, and we're in front of Luxor, right? I think it was Luxor.
Yeah, Luxor Temple at night.
Right, Luxor Temple. And the one thing that I learned that I didn't know, and I was just kind of like, and then Taaqiy was trying to explain it to me, and I'm like, well, what do you mean orientation? He was like, well, you know, the best way to explain it to you would be with a compass. And then we had to do this whole animation in the film where we had to explain the orientation of this site and why he actually wanted to shoot this and what he had to explain. Can you explain that to us?
So I gotta give, well, this is something I got from one of my many teachers, Infudishi. He explains this. Left, right, no Sanjettis in the chat, and you can definitely kind of chime in too. So, you know, when you think of ancient Kemet has an orientation, a southern orientation, in other words. And you know this because of how they demonstrate right and left. So when you're facing, this temple was actually orientated south to north. So we're on what they call the Corniche, the street right there, and the temple's across the street. Most Egyptian temples are orientated east-west, east for the rising of the sun. This one in particular, called the Shemed Ipet, or the Luxor Temple, is orientated, like I said, south to north. So we're standing there, and I'm actually facing south. My body is facing south. And if you think about what the word for right is in ancient Kemet, or in the Middle Netia, is Amet, right, or the west. And right is Amenti. So the only way for you to get that, you have to orient yourself to the south. And when you think about all the notions of Egyptology kind of trying to take Kemet out of Africa, they never want to deal with this piece because this puts Kemet right back in its proper perspective in terms of orienting itself to its southern origin. And your right hand or the right is to the west, and your left hand is facing to the east, or your bet So that's kind of the thing there. So that's important. I don't really do it as much justice as someone like Ifudishi does, but essentially right and left only works by the way they define it is you're facing south.
So there was a lot of little things like that, Felicia, that Taaqiy was kind of bringing into the mix that I said, you know, would go right over your head, right? But he kind of
later
was able to, you know, create these breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
I think I just kind of want to go over these different things because I know it's a lot. Is that trip with Wade Nobles, and I hadn't thought about this and saying, you know, well, everything as far as how we study psychology is from a Freud perspective, right? A Freudian perspective. And that's kind of like the base, right? And then everything comes from a Eurocentric understanding of your moods, right? Of understanding character development and all this other stuff. But now when I met Wade Nobles, he was like, no, there's an African perspective of psychology as well. And I was like my brain blew up. And I was like, okay, so break it down. And then he started communicating and just explaining to us why that would be and how, based on our orientation to a specific climate, to living in a specific area on the planet, would completely change our perspective of how we view our creator and how we consume things, how we have an understanding to a spiritual relationship that we would now have based on all of those things combining into one. And I just had to sit there and go, wow. Now the big principle was, how do we relate consumption, basically consuming, right? To consume, you need to have something to trade, right? Unless you're like hunting it or killing it yourself, you know, if it's pre-made, you have to have something to exchange. And that's where, you know, Noble came in and it started explaining that on the most primordial way possible. And I'm just sitting there and going, again, I felt like I was in school, you know, here I am on the West Coast. And not only that, but him and his son, they had a whole community. all of this was set up, and they have been doing this for years. So I felt like with every step that Akmarie and I took, I was kind of like learning another tier of information. And what it just reminded me was that I know nothing, right? Like I had to humble myself with every step, because now I was going to be introduced to this other tier. And this brother had books out. It wasn't just like, it wasn't like, oh, we just went to this lecture and so forth and so on. And, we sat and we sat in a shrine that he had an altar, and, you could tell again that, like, very much like Baaba Heru, he was living this. This was his life. These were real, genuine people that had devoted their entire lives to what their specific speciality was. And, I mean, you want to build on because I know we did Noble once, right? And I gave you a hard time. You had done Noble before, and I was like, no, we cannot not have this right. And we had to go, and I said we have to have this individual's audio right. And I think that's one of the things you were alluding to. It wasn't just voice. It was
several. But one thing about Dr. Noble's, so timing and all this plays into factor. And even down to who was shot, when they shot, things like that. There was already a family piece that existed for HAPI. HAPI walked into family, and it started with Dr. J, Professor Smalls. Those are the two like HAPI pillars. Mfudishi comes in third. And once you have that core, then that core just expanded. And it was like, okay, who's going to be in this film outside of that? Now it becomes a situation again of access, because you request people for interviews. Those interview requests don't come along sometime right away. You know what I'm saying? They take a long time to materialize. Even like Dr. Malvo, she was somebody who was on a wish list, but people don't, they'll get back to you at their time, and then you got to figure out a time that works mutually for everyone. So it kind of had to work out that way. And using that and the segue into Dr. Noble's, it was like, all right, going back to California just did not seem to be in the budget at that point. But it just so happened, working with Baca and other people in Northern California, it was like, we're going to go there to, again, market this film and market this project and put on this screening there in Sacramento, so we can actually do two things at one time. You know what I mean? So we had to kind of work it that way, because we were going to be on the West Coast for something. And it just so happened that, and I forget the people who were organizing the event in Sacramento, that Dr. Nobles, Dr. J, and Professor Smalls were going to be there as well. So it was like, oh, come on, this is it. This is our opportunity to kind of do that. And those opportunities presented themselves when it was time for them to present themselves. So it just, again, not learning how not to be resistant and learning how to just go with the flow, because it was going to happen, but we just had to kind of sit back and wait for it to happen, put it out there, and then it would happen. And even like, he mentioned Dr. Solange Aspie, that wasn't an easy task. And that came through trying to work through other sisters who I wanted in the film prior to her, but they couldn't do it. So they was like, well, reach out to this person, she might be interested. And after months of back and forth talking to her, then it was like, okay, we can do it, but we needed opportunity because we wanted to shoot her in Egypt. So the trip for 2018 came up when we took the people to Egypt, and we just put her a part of that trip, and we just kind of went off to the side and did it. So we had two things going on. We had a trip of people, 60 some odd people, right? And then we were doing these interviews for the film.
That's wild.
So it was a juggling act, but it provided opportunity to be able to fund the project and to fund that piece of it, because now we're not only bringing her there, but you also have to do the administration piece again. We had to get the paperwork and all that stuff. Everything costs. Everything's there's a price tag. The Egyptian government's not just letting you in for free. Yeah, come on, do this. So you had to take care of those things, and we had to find ways, creative ways, and those creative ways presented themselves. So it was always kind of a thing where you just kind of sit back and be like, all right, well, what do we need to do? Who do we need? And what do we want to do? But that relationship with Dr. Ashby and I it took a lot. It took time. Even going back to Deborah Hurd, it was Deborah Hurd. I remember Deborah's last name, but she's also a PhD in Chicago. And I've known her through ASCAT many years, and I reached out to her first because there was somebody that I knew, and she couldn't travel or something. She was doing something at the time, but she just couldn't make it. And she's like, I think I might have somebody that, who may be what you're looking for. And that's how she introduced me to Dr. Ashby.
So I just want to just say thank you, family, for all the HAPI Cash App love. Thank you. And let me tell you, this is a prime example, okay, how when you guys contribute, and it doesn't matter if it's $1, $10, $100, it does not matter. The money that you contribute, it's and when you give it to us, we literally are turning it around to other Black folks. Like everything that you see visually, our opener, all those things, those are done by Black folks. Right here, we have Robert Seed of formerly known as Tahuti Films, now Ibis River Studios. Okay, all of our trailers, all those things, that's Seed. We also have Alfredo. Every time I say Alfredo, I feel like I'm saying the sauce. Fredo. We have Fredo who does, some of our short form things, videos and stuff. We have Mike Drake that does a lot of our graphics, and these are all Black folks. So when you guys contribute to the Cash App, know that this is what we're using these monies plus like our money to put with it to make these things happen. So family, thank you so much for the Cash App love, and anything that you can give, please do. And also, and if you can't, listen, it is easy for you just to like the video and send it to somebody else. That's just as much as cash currency now in 2025. So family, thank you for all the support. And speaking of, guys, and I'm sorry, because I want to have some time to talk about the brand new opener. Okay. And Seed, I have to ask you this question. So family, the HAPI documentary is 2 hours and 12 minutes. Okay. So how, you've made lots of trailers before, but how did you look at this film and say, okay, now I'm going to make another trailer that's 60 seconds out of a film that's 2 hours and 12 minutes? Like, what was your thinking? You know what I'm saying? Like, how did you guys, come up with this?
I think, I always go back to, again, like what you're learning from each individual person. And the one thing that stuck out to me very early on was economics, politics, and culture. And that was, Dr. J's go-to, right? As far as if we would go left, if we would go off the beaten path, it was kind of like his compass, like this is what it's about. And we always had to return to that. And with that being said, there were certain sound bites that after, sitting and pretty much, I think that I did every interview but one, right? Every interview but two. So after sitting there with the sound bites, but I'm editing it, so it really doesn't matter, right? Because I'm reviewing the content over and over and over again. That there's certain sound bites that will lead to certain visuals. So I think that that's kind of like in communicating with Taaqiy and saying, well, what are those sound bites going to be? Because it was very much like that. It wasn't like is my way, and is we didn't operate that way. It was very formless. We talk about things. What is it that we want what are we invoking in the audience? What do we want them to think? What, how are we instigating this to occur, and so forth and so on. So, it took a little bit of that. It took some of what we already had in the can with people, but then we took current events. We took things that were significant, people that were significant figures in history. And, I think that, I hope I'm answering your question. I think that's the way it looked. It felt like it was a collage of different things, but all of those things were guided by these sound bites. I know that Dr. Batalora had a really, smack you in your mouth soundbite. I know that at one point, Charles Barron, he had a really, powerful soundbite. Dr. J. So
Yeah.
it's just like one of those things. So it was like, well, what are we covering? Like what he's saying, what are we showing the people and communicating so that they can think about and process what the soundbite is communicating? How do you answer that question, Ty?
Well, I mean, as it relates to a trailer, and we're probably in our fifth one now, fifth or sixth, something like that. We wanted to do something really different, and the thing that comes to my mind first is a lot of the other trailers move very slowly. It was actually full kind of statements, almost full scenes, and we were looking at it kind of that way, dealing with like full scenes almost, but trying to still keep it. But some of them are like 2 minutes long, so we didn't really have thinking like 60 seconds. But we're thinking of 60 seconds is not a lot of time to play with. So just looking at the algorithms of what's out there and how people are processing information, like C said, the sound bites are important, but the images are even more important in the sense that you may not have to see them that long, just let them kind of hear it. So one of the things that we started thinking about this latest iteration of a HAPI movie trailer. It was like, you know what, we need something that moves faster and more to the point statements. And one of the things I wanted to kind of flesh out was the economic piece. It's so important to really bring that forefront because HAPI, in it of itself is economics, politics, and culture. When you think of the film and how it feels and what it's communicating, and sometimes one is to the forefront and the others two kind of get pushed behind. So I wanted to put economics as the tip of the spear and make sure that penetrates first. You hit them with the economics. A lot of times we get kind of caught in the culture, and I think culture is easy for us because it's like low-hanging fruit, and we lean towards that first. We lean towards the drapings of attire and and other things, whereas economics kind of eludes us because we're not focused on that. And I think that's what we're kind of losing, and we're losing our competitive acumen because we don't focus on the economic piece. And as we say in that trailer, is we were always economic actors, right? And that's something that was taken directly from the film from Dr. Malveaux. And when you think about that and you think about HAPI, you think about the world's first great mega economy, which is also from the film, which is ancient Kemet. So we was always executing economics, but somewhere between then and now, that acumen for economics has been lost. So we need to kind of bring them back. And that is one of the missions of HAPI, is to reorient, going back to Luxor Temple people to the economic process of, economics process of life. Because that's what it is. It's more than just money. Economics is a lot more. And that's some of the things I learned. I learned a lot in making the film was not money, but economics. And what does that mean? So
to me, what I'm coming to the conclusion now, like even having this recap conversation, right, with all these years that have gone by, is how relevant HAPI is now more than ever.
Yeah, right? I say that every day.
Yeah,
it's relevant more now than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, and one of the people that I haven't spoken about, but and you just brought it up, is James Small. Professor James Small had a huge impact on me, not just by what he was teaching, but by the way that he delivered what he was communicating and how eloquently he would communicate and teach. And one of the things that, he talks about is ecology. One of the things that he was communicating was about migration, some of which, some of those lectures, and we've talked about this several times, like each one of those interviews can be a film somewhere else. They stand alone, but particularly Professor Small's interview at his house. I know that we did a couple, but I think that the first one was so charged, and you asked all the right questions, and y'all were like, in complete harmony, and it just really taught me a lot about what the white flight and just how people moved and why they moved, and the similarities to what occurred in ancient Kemet. and why people moved, because whether it was war, whether it was famine, ecological changes and so forth and so on. And at first I'm like, where are they going with this? I'm like, and that's what I mean by, like, you just have to silence yourself and listen and be open to receiving the message. And that was something that that I received in different parts from Professor Small. But I also know that he was somebody that you were speaking to, as hey, I'm back on this map. Like, we got this. What's the next step, and so forth and so on. And to me, that showed me, a level of humility about you too as a filmmaker, because we had also I had made films before working on HAPI, and then made films after working on HAPI, and you realize, like, this shit ain't easy. This shit is not easy to do, and you have to have allies. You have to have mentors that you could go to and to help you problem solve things, but also just to kind of keep you sound, because you could lose your shit. You could lose your mind dealing with some people and dealing with some situations and figuring some things out. Because it like, sometimes when you're working on a doc, I know one of the people that I study is Ken Burns, and he says at a minimum it takes him 5 years to make one film. And not a lot of people have that wallet, not a lot of people have that purse, that bag to be able to do so. And I think that, if anything, sometimes the challenges that come up are more so based on that, right? Not based on like your will or your love for the topic. But I think that those are some of the things that stick out to me. And I can't, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Jabari Osaze. I thought that was a really pivotal interview that we got. It took a minute to get that one too, Taaqiy, and we finally got that one. And I felt like he gave us a great interview in Brooklyn, I believe, right? That was Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
Oh, he was in Brooklyn.
Yeah, that was his colleagues, Brownstone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I was actually on my way to work too. Just like,
it's amazing how y'all was able to do this in between work and.
Yeah, it was a lot, but so yeah, we've done a lot of things, like I call, like, kind of pre-HAPI and during the production of HAPI, and also a lot of things kind of after, a lot of the trailers, things like that. The first opener we had for HAPI Talks, this brother right here executed, and I know Felicia.
Yeah, I want to play it again.
No, yeah, that's fine. But and I know you had some thoughts about it, and just wanted to, let you go ahead and share your thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, it's almost the same question as the trailer, because the opener, like, I'm always a person who's just receiving the thing and then putting it where it needs to go. And when I'm looking at it, I was like, how did you guys come up with this? But the opener, I loved the first opener. I remember when we first got the opener, because family, if you guys don't remember, when we first started HAPI Talks, we had no opener. We were just like, turned the camera on. It was like, hey guys, and at some point I remember you and your wife actually hosted a HAPI Talks with, I think it was with Sri Master Ganos.
Okay.
You guys actually did one, but I remember we had no opener. Then when we got the opener, I was like, oh my God, we are official now. We have this opener, and I love this opener. So then when, Taaqiy started talking, and he said, oh, we need a new opener because HAPI's going to be going a different direction. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I don't know. Like, I just didn't want anybody to touch this opener. But then you guys came up with this concept. So how did you come up with the new concept? Should I show it first and then you guys answer?
Yeah, go ahead, show it first.
Okay, because some family, if you didn't see, because we started the new opener today, but I'm going to play it again so that we can see it. I love this.
Economics and politics are the foundation of human development.
While forming the world's earliest civilizations, Africans also laid the groundwork for the creation of economic systems.
By learning from our history, we gain the strength to empower the present and design the future. Presenting the premier forum for truth, culture, and change. HAPI Talks. Join us as we unlock the secrets to our success. That is dope. That is dope. So how did you guys like come up with that?
I mean, I think that we had a lot of goodies in the can. I mean, I think that
This is a lot of
yeah, and I think when you shoot a film for 4 years, you know, you have content that you never use, you have content that you want to revisit. But I think, again, you know, it really does come down to those sound bites and the VOs, the voiceovers that were used. Will kind of push and force you to use certain imagery. But and I think that this administration has also, you know, brought a lot of color into HAPI, because it makes everything that we were speaking about that much more relevant. You know, a lot of what Dr. Malveaux was speaking about, a lot of what Bantalora was speaking about, like we're living, you know, and this was something that, you know, we started thinking about 5 years ago. And even before that, you know what I mean? But the fact that that was something that we had asked them these questions, we had forecasted that this was going to happen, and now here we are, you know, where we're having the biggest push of immigration that's ever happened. But not to say that the administration before this didn't usher it in, because that's not something that's being discussed either. So, you know, we've been a part of this whole time, you know, and I'm just grateful that there was the educational piece that was put in play, and we've done our part. I can't say that we have not done our part. I hope that people have the patience to be able to watch something like HAPI, and also to help people that don't really understand the information, that they would pull someone over, a younger person, and sit them down and explain it to them. Because I think that, you know, both you, Taaqiy, Akmarie, did a very good job in kind of, you know, breaking this down, and spoon feeding and creating breadcrumbs for everyone. I mean, everything. I mean, George Floyd happened. A lot of things have happened since we made this film. You know, COVID happened, the world shut down. A lot happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, that question, that's a loaded question.
So, you know, one of the things when I look at the opener, there's a lot that comes to mind. And from a foundational standpoint, we had the first one. At least we had some framework to work with. We had the history of doing other things, the most recent trailer that we put together. But this was the HAPI Talks opener, right? And there were certain elements that are germane to HAPI Talks. And one of them you see there are the host people that we've had on the show throughout the years. And we wanted to make sure that they were featured in some way, some format, that we had them on there, because without them, there would be no HAPI Talks. And just also give respect and credence to the fact that some of them have made their transition. Like you see in there, you know, Baaba Heru was on there, Professor Newton's on there, Runoko Rashidi's on there. These were all cornerstone people in HAPI Talks, you know. And also for me, it was important that we separate. In order to do this thing correctly, we have to figure out what's HAPI Talks, what's HAPI Film, and kind of deal with them separately, individually, because that's the only way they're going to be successful, is we give them the love and attention that they deserve from an individual standpoint. So it was important for me that we created something that spoke to HAPI Talks, not necessarily HAPI. The first one was more so HAPI. There was sound bites from the film, and we were kind of blending the film in, because the original purpose of HAPI Talks was to promote HAPI Film. When we first started this, we were doing interviews with cast members to get people aware of the film. We since transitioned from that and have more of a broader perspective in terms of what we're going to be discussing. And one of those things, like Seed said, was current events, things that are going on now. There's things that lend into the administration of this country and globally around the world that we want to capture in that opener. So that was one of the things that, you know, we when Seed and I sat down was like, we need to communicate stuff that's going on now, also communicate the stars. You know, we have over, we've just, where maybe last month we went over 2 million views in HAPI Talks, and we have over 200 some interviews. You know what I mean? So there's history here just in HAPI Talks, and it has to be, that had to be communicated. So this was, for me, was a moment where HAPI Talks had to be, you know, not singled out, but also like just kind of put in its own space.
Yeah.
You know, because it also helps with all things happy. Kind of all things happy starts here in HAPI Talks. This is the way we communicate with the family in the world. So shout out to UC, did a great job, and you know, I'm just happy we're able to execute that.
Yeah. Man, I tell you, like the first iteration I saw, I was like, yes. And then, you know, Taaqiy's like, oh, we're not done yet. I was like, what? You know, he's always like, it's not done yet. It's not done yet. And you guys come and you add those little twitches, and then it's like, it's beautiful, but it just flows so nicely. And it's really great to see everybody, you know, there, especially Dr. Runoko Rashidi, you know, like it's so, I just think about all those shows that he did with us.
Huge. It was such a turning point for us. The Runoko Rashidi first interview.
Yeah.
That put us in a different algorithm, you know, and these are all things that were so important to the development of it. And like I said, throughout that process, even though we weren't making the film anymore, Seed has been a big part of what we're doing in HAPI Talks. Even the graphic here, that HAPI Talks logo, what we have on YouTube, the thumbnail on it, these are all things that were created by Seed. So it's just an ongoing thing. And one of the things that, you know, for me in HAPI, it was just understanding the power of relationships, you know, and just how wealthy and rich you may be, just connecting with people and maintaining those relationships. That's so important. That's something we need to, if we're going to pass anything on to the community, is one thing that we need to cherish and respect and love one another and build relationships with each other, because you just never know how these things are going to work out and play themselves out.
Yeah.
So we've been so quick to kind of discard people and to understand that there's some real value in just networking and working with people. And I'm really proud that we can be an example of that, you know, and HAPI. And that's, to me, that's one of the biggest takeaways, is like, you know, be an example of working, colluding with people who look like you, because all this time we've been taught not to do that. So we need to work, collude with those who look like us, and build networks. And we can, if we do that, we can build pyramids again. But it has to start here on a fundamental level.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. Seed, I wanted you to let the family know like what you're working on now, and how can they get a hold of you?
A lot of the stuff that we're doing now is you know, in the same vein of social justice work. I think that we did, from what I learned from HAPI and pivoting to working with Erica Ford, to working with Emea Laquiva, director Emea Laquiva. His company's called Your Mom's House, to working with John Mark Sandifer, who I've been working with for close to 25 years now, BET and Viacom and Sandifer Networks. There's a lot of different things that we're in development with, but we're full-time filmmakers. Akmarie and I, you know, Akmarie graduated from NYU. She's director now. She made her first short film. She's in the film festival circuit. You know, and working with full crews and writing and directing. So it's one of those things where, you know, because of all of those things, that's where the rebranding came about, you know, of saying, hey, you know what, we are Tahuti Films, but we're going to kind of continue to grow, which is, you know, what we have to do. If not, there would just be one temple, right? There's multiple temples, right? So in the same way, we had to continue growing. One of the projects that we're working on, it's called Urban MD, which it fosters female Black MDs and demystifies the process of going to the doctor, pharmaceutical medicine versus allopathic medicine, and, you know, myth versus facts. All of these things that, you know, I guess like a show like Dr. Oz, which is, you know, purely white show, has on, but it kind of gives a voice to African people. We just worked on a film called The Ebony Canal, which won 4 Emmys for infant mortality death rates amongst African American women. And it's in the film festival circuit right now, directed by Emea Laquiva from Your Mom's House. I mean, you know, again, this is just a lot of different stuff from HAPI. You know, I continue my relationships with Chester Higgins. We did a project with him called Black Pantheon, which is still in the works. We're still developing, which are, you know, he had over 350 portraits that he shot from 1960 to I think close to the 80s or the 90s. And, you know, Maya Angelou, Sidney Poitier, Robert Nesta Marley, Haile Selassie, Quincy Jones. I mean, the names go on and on and on and on. So what it was that Chester, it was like a day in a life situation where Chester was now going to develop these camera originals in a film lab. So like I follow him to the lab and we develop these pictures, and he's like looking at them for the first time that he's seen them in 30 years. And Black Pantheon is the fact that as African Americans, we don't have a pantheon within this culture being here within the United States. So Black Pantheon is kind of like his homage to all of the greats within African American culture, and it's right there to the right. And if you click on that, that opens up. If you click on Black Pantheon, and that opens up, and you get a better sight of that work. So those are all the pictures. You see Maya Angelou and Jackie Robinson and Kofi Annan, Muhammad Ali. You know, I mean, so there's just a body of work there that again, I learned from being around my elders and them, you know, taking the time to give me, you know, a better insight of their work. And that's really what we are, right? So we are only as great as the subjects that we choose to highlight. And that's what I've chosen to do with my life. My wife is into narrative. My wife is into fiction and nonfiction. But I stick with nonfiction, and I develop stories about people's regality, about the best of people and what they have to share and what they've done on this planet. And that's kind of, you know, what continues. That's what gets me up in the morning. Is speaking life into things, right? Speaking life into people, teaching about people. But I really love people. You know, I love learning about them and what they do and how they go about doing it and what excites them, and then sharing that with you, right? So people could be like, oh, shit, I didn't know this person. And, you know, we were able to do the project with Abdul Musawer, at part of it in your house. Abdul Musawer recently transitioned, and not recently, about 3 years ago. And he was a Tai Chi master that had worked with Wesley Snipes and, you know, like ranked one of the top martial artists in the world, African-American brother that not a lot of people know about. And one of the brothers that I've had met across coming through the temple was one of his Tai Chi students. And he put me on, and boom, we did this whole piece on Abdul Musawer. So, you know, it's just, that's kind of how we've been walking. You know, I'm communicating to Taaqiy about what his next film is going to be. You know, just kind of you know, nudging him that it's time. So, you know, it's just one of those things where, you know, it's really about timing. You know, this whole thing is really about timing, and whether or not we have space and the patience. The money will find its way. You know, it always has a way of, you know, that's not the one thing that I worry about. It's but the collaborative part, if you know that things work well. I'm really inspired by seeing Ken Burns and Florentine Films. They just released something called Civil War, and they really took another approach on really embedding the indigenous part, where in so-called American history is never put in there. So that he took another approach, but everything that he's doing, I think he's doing a Project Muhammad Ali. They're probably releasing 6 films within the next 2-3 years. Shout out to Florentine Films. And I think that with all this technology, it really allows us to make better content. People are focused on the technology and the AI, this and that, but the content is not really being focused on. I think that AI allows us to do things like be able to tell stories and give you an image of a Moor, and give you an image of this person, give you an image of that person. And that's cute, but at the end of the day, is really about the historical value of what you're communicating and how that's being shared with other people, and whether they're getting that or not. And there's really a lot of live human beings that we need to speak to, right? And use this technology to speak to live human beings and have them speak directly to us. And like Taaqiy was saying earlier, build relationships with them versus just punching shit and prompting into an AI model and having them spit out some shit. So, not to say that I have anything against the technology, but I do really believe, I love human beings. So I think that we just need to, continue sharing with each other, so that way we could continue learning from each other and relinquishing some of this ego shit that's going on in our communities. Because right now our community is fractured, and we really need to find ways to get along, to not necessarily work on hierarchies, but work on how do we all come to an agreement on something. That's one of the things with this Baaba Heru thing that we're putting together. Like, we vote on everything. Like, we have to come to an understanding with each other before we move forward to have so and that's the way that Baaba Heru didn't really have a chip on his shoulder. If you were Islamic, if you were Christian, if you were Judaic, he welcomed you in, and he found his way to teach and sometimes to be quiet too. You know what I mean? Sometimes to say nothing. So it's one of those things, Thank you again for putting that up. December 6th, which is Friday, in Harlem, we're going to be honoring the great Baaba Heru, Ankh, Semaj, Ptah at the Caribbean Cultural Center from 1 to 5. I believe that Felicia Jehuti Mus and Professor Kaba will be speaking, amongst many others. There will be performances by Dr. Love, and we're also doing it that Sunday, December 7th, at Mega Everett's at the Founders Auditorium, and we'll be there from 12 to about 7. And we have a whole lineup there of speakers, of rituals that will be held based on Kemetic principles straight out of the Ptah Heru, to guide and to communicate to the world about what the duat is, and to ensure that Baaba Heru is moving forward to the duat, which I'm sure we all are, and we are aware of that based on his heart being as light as a feather. I have no doubt of that whatsoever. And thank you for allowing me the platform to come on to communicate. All this work that we've done. I personally feel that outside of having me on, it was really a vow to both of y'all and the work that y'all have put in. Because people just see the film, but they don't see all the stuff, or nobody's communicated what it took to make the film and what it took, all the steps that it took to get this done. So my hat goes off to both of you, because it's really important that people know that, and all of the elders and all of the community that it took to make things like this happen and to continue, making these things happen. So I hope that y'all come out Saturday or Sunday, whatever your availability is, so I can give you your ashes in public with the community.
That's what's up. I haven't seen you in a while. See, yeah, that's what's up. Thank you. Listen, all things beautiful and happy. I mean, your images, even looking through your website, I'm like, wow, this, like, the images are they're beautiful. How you get and listen, Taaqiy knows I love a black and white, and I think somebody in the
yeah, I saw that. Somebody put that comment up. Yeah,
it was like, I love black and white. I was like, yeah, you with me right there. Yeah, right here, Trell. Yeah, she's like, I was like, yes, me too. So yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and thank
but
you.
listen, that goes out to that creative eye Seed has and everything we do. It looks good.
Yeah.
So
and
definitely get at them. You got something you want to do? Felicia, put the contact information up there again so people can see how they can reach out to them.
Yeah. I mean, again, I just want to close out with this. Don't let Taaqiy off the hook. We're waiting for the next film. I think I'm just gonna go there again. It's not about the film we made. It's about our body of work, right? So that's how we are known, by our body of work. So and the other part of it too is, like, with everything, I don't have to be the director. I could be the editor. I could be the DP. I could be the writer. I could be the gaffer. Like, and we all play that role. I'm waiting for your next film, Felicia. Felicia's a filmmaker too, right? So in and of itself, like, that's what we have to do. We have to inspire each other, support each other. I was a part of my wife's film. I was the driver. I wasn't the DP. I wasn't the director. I wasn't nothing. I was the supporting driver, the gaffer, the person that brought in the equipment and loaded it in. So, hey, you just play your role. You do what you got to do. You support each other. I think now I'm the editor, not, hey, I want to make some changes, and that's just the way it is. So, we all have to play our role, and we can get the stuff done, because we still have to continue learning. There's a lot of work, and we have to be better. I'm gonna close off with that. I know I had a lot to say. We have to be better.
Be better.
Okay? Period.
It's coming. It's coming. There's a lot of things coming and HAPI, a lot of things, new and exciting things for the upcoming year. And right after that, things are going to be kind of coming more. Things are going to be coming rapidly. Let me say that. And we're excited about the future. There's a lot to do, and we're excited about the connections and made and the people we've met. The people in the chat, my man Wolfman, and a lot of people who's been in there, been with us from day one, and a lot of people who are a part of the HAPI family. It's a real thing. The HAPI movement's a real thing. We first sat down, Rock, Charles, and I, and we was talking about the HAPI movement. It was with some words that we put together. It literally didn't really have much. I don't even remember what the hell they were, but it was some words we put together, but it really had no substance to it. Now I can say it has substance, and we got these shirts here, and on it we have power and unity, and this is what we understand to be the true meaning of HAPI.
Yeah.
Even when we look at, we talk about this all the time, when we look at the HAPI, the tying in the lotus and papyrus plants, it's the unification. It's always been about unity. So living in the spirit of HAPI is about working together, unifying, and building with like-minded people. And we look forward to the future, to building with everyone here. So, yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah. And you know what? I want to just say this, it's so interesting, because it's really nice to have a conversation like this, because, a lot of times people look at people who do films or just do art as something like an extra job or something like that. And I love how, Seed, you said, you do this full time. Like, this is your career. This is your job. And this is, to show the family that you can be successful in other things that are just not this other type of job that everyone thinks that you have to have, but that the arts are so much our lane, and it's really great when we're in it, because then we will tell our stories, because no one else is really, knocking down the door to tell our stories, not in a real way. So it's really important that, that if you have an inkling, you want to do something like this, is that you do it, like you actually do it, because, we are who we are, but we can't tell every story. It takes, listen, if you can do it, make it happen. Pictures, art, fine art, drawing, any of those things, just, make it happen. But yeah, right.
Yeah, I know these young people are getting doses of information and they're constantly getting bombarded on social media with stuff. If there's something that sticks out to you and it resonates with you, make a film about it, write a poem about it, do something that in and of itself is like Taaqiy knew this thing. He had it in his brain, and then he had to communicate it with me, and then then we had to sit with Ankh, then we had to sit with Felicia, then we breaking this down into segments and saying, okay, well, what's going to come first? And then, but in and of itself, it came from him knowing something, him having an understanding, and then him wanting to be able to explain it the way that he got it, right? And not being afraid to do that, because some people will be like, I got it, but and then you just kind of just shelf it. I ain't gonna go that far. And he went the extra mile. And not only that, but he was like, I want you to see what it looks like from the Kemetic perspective. So even right now, what you're looking at, this is in Hatshepsut's temple. I took this photograph, and it is HAPI, right? And they're tying the theft knot, bringing the HAPI into Semaj, right? The north and the south. But now when this was first presented to me, it was Heru and Satesh, and they were tying the theft knot, and Baaba Heru was communicating Semaj, unifying your lower and higher self, right? So it's just a representation of this echoing through history and what it meant to different people at different times. But, HAPI is something that, like, I think about it now, and like, I live on the river. I live on the Anacostia River, right? It was one of those things that we were talking about, like how all civilizations started rivers. And it's something that, like, after working on this film, I take it with me, and I'm constantly thinking about something that one of those elders shared along the way. And I hope that effect that it has on me will have that effect on people that see it, in years to come.
Thank you.
I'm sure it will.
Thank you. That's what's up. All right, family. Okay, I'm gonna put you guys in the green room, or I don't know. You wanna close off?
No, I got it, Felicia.
No, okay. I'm gonna put you guys. Thank you so much, Seed. And we're gonna be doing it again. And just thank you.
I'll see you on Saturday and Sunday at Baaba Heru's celebration of life. Okay, I ain't taking no for an answer.
I see. Well, you're trying to put me on blast. All right. All right. I will put you guys in the background to stay there, and I'll close off the show. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
There you go, family. Wow, this was good. I learned some new things about HAPI. That's what's up. Okay, family. Again, listen, you can go to any of our pages. We will have the links. I'm going to put the links in the YouTube page, our HAPI Film YouTube page, the links for Baaba Heru's celebrations next weekend. That's the 6th and the 7th. Just make sure you click the link so that you can RSVP, your space, because like Seed said, there's about 150 people that can come out to the event on Saturday. Everything's free, but you want to just make sure that you are, reserving your space. Also, family, make sure you are liking and sharing this video with somebody, at least 3 people. Jabari said 3 people. And thank you so much again for everyone who gave the cash apps. And just know your cash app goes directly into the hands of anyone that's doing any work for us, and they look like us. We just saw Seed, who the creative genius behind these images. Oh my God, they're beautiful. And I will also put his website onto our YouTube page as well, so you can click and you can see all the cool stuff he's doing. He's just like Taaqiy. They don't like to say a lot of what they're doing. So they need people like me to like prop them up and say, look, y'all need to really look at their stuff because they are awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, family. I'm going to end the show with this our beautiful opener. And I really, just thank you guys for coming through. It's been a pleasure. And in the words of, who I always use, Professor Small, peace and blessings.
Economics and politics are the foundation of human development.
While forming the world's earliest civilizations, Africans also laid the groundwork for the creation of economic systems.
By learning from our history, we gain the strength to empower the present and design the future. Presenting the premier forum for truth, culture, and change. HAPI Talks. Join us as we unlock the secrets to our success.